50% of women admit to having cheated on their spouses at some time during their marriage. She interviewed dozens of self-professed cheaters to find out why they have affairs, men and women, and says they're often just as confused about the affair as those around them. I'm going to reserve judgment on that one. I find that hard to believe. But first, if you feel your life is stuck on Groundhog Day, same routine, same job, same conversations, Austin Kleon is back with a new addition to his series on creativity. He's the New York Times best-selling author to Steal Like an Artist, Show Your Work, and the Steal Like an Artist Journal, a notebook for creative kleptomaniacs. He's been featured on NPR, PBS NewsHour, and many other platforms, including, of course, our show several times. And he speaks about creativity in the digital age for organizations such as Pixar, Google, TEDx. The Atlantic describes him as one of the most interesting people on the internet, and I would agree with them. I'm a huge fan of Austin's work, and we sat down last week to chat. Having talked with him, I think 4 times now, I have to tell you, he's still so modest in spite of the huge success he's had with his work. Ask him what he does, and he says quite simply, I'm a writer who draws, I make art with words and books with pictures. And this book, he says, is the book he himself needed to read. It's called Keep Going, 10 Ways to Stay Creative in Good Times and Bad. Here's my conversation with Austin Kleon. So, Austin, I'm so pleased you've come out with another book. I've been waiting for you to come out with the next book, and this is called Keep Going, 10 Ways to Stay Creative in Good Times and in Bad. And I'm wondering, you know, your work is full of words, illustration, ideas, poetry, quotes. Why do you think it appeals to so many people? Because I've talked with so many people from different backgrounds, and they love it.
Well, I think 2 things. I think one, you know, it's like Alice in Wonderland said, what's the point of a book without any pictures in it? I think that, you know, I love the fact that I make books for adults with pictures in them. That's kind of like, or all ages, because if you say adult, it makes it sound smutty. But, you know, my books are for all ages, and they have pictures in them, and they're very visual, and I think they're like collages, you know. They can be flipped through, and you can kind of like pick them up at any point. So I think the format appeals to people, but I also think that I'm a person that's sort of I'm kind of a mongrel. Like I'm a mongrel of like artist and writer, and so I'm very interested in lots of different like disciplines and how they talk to each other. So I think in my work, I'm always interested in, you know, what filmmakers have to say to novelists or what sculptors have to say to poets. And so I think that kind of gives my work a kind of, I have my fingers in a lot of different areas, and I think I can pull things together for people, you know, no matter what their discipline is. So
yes.
I think that's how it works.
Yes, because even though different disciplines, people do face many of the same challenges there. And I read that you wrote this book because you were feeling a little challenged yourself and you needed to read it. So tell us what was going on in your life and how you were feeling.
Well, I really, a couple of years ago, you know, it had been a couple of years since I'd written a book, and I was just feeling the plain old burnout, basically. The world just seemed too crazy, and writing seemed too hard, and I just thought, what's the point of books in a world that's gone this way? And I just kind of lost my path, and so I did what I think you have to do sometimes, which is I went away so I could come back. So I spent a lot of time kind of not working. I spent a lot of time writing in my diary, spent a lot of time taking walks, and spent a lot of time with my kids and just playing with them. And eventually I kind of cobbled together by studying, you know, the books of other writers and studying the words of other artists. I kind of cobbled together my own personal 10 commandments to keep me back on track. And after I had assembled it, I thought, well, you know, this is really the next book. I want to put this out in the world because I felt like it could help my friends and my readers who seem to be facing a lot of the same challenges that I was. So it's a very personal book for me. It's a book that I really had to write because I wanted to read it.
Yes, and I think that often when you do work that you love, other people find it hard to acknowledge that you can get to that point of burnout. Because I've been there myself, and people have said, you have the dream job.
Yeah, I mean, just because it's like a dream job doesn't mean that it's not still a job, And I'm very interested in how many artists have a lot of trouble when they have a big success. Like, success can knock you off your game just as much as failure can in some ways, because when you fail, everyone kind of leaves you alone. No one's really watching you. You can kind of go away and explore and do your own thing. But when you have a big success, then all of a sudden people have expectations of you. So it's very interesting in our careers how, no matter what point you're at, it's always kind of hard to keep going. And I think that whether you're starting out or starting over, or you're burned out or you're super successful, that question never goes away. What's next? How do you keep going? How do I keep doing this? And so I think it's good to have a little bit of guidance and your own principles to kind of keep you to correct things when things get out of hand.
Absolutely. And there's a good segue into this question, because there's been a lot of discussion lately around can you separate a man from his art, and can you separate the art from the man? And I'm talking, of course, of some of the scandals that have come out, celebrity scandals, and people love their work and yet find the behavior of the person reprehensible. There's a great quote in the book that you share by Ben Shahn. He says, however glorious the history of art, the history of artists is quite another matter. And you say, art is for life, not the other way around. So would you share your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, this is tricky, uncomfortable territory for a lot of people right now. But if, I personally believe that art is supposed to make life better. And when you make art, the hope is that you give people affirmation, that great art makes us glad to be alive. It makes us, kind of seize our days, and it gives us a new way of looking at the world. But I also think that, that's true of the making of art, too, that making art should make your life better, and it should make the lives of the people around you, it should at least not do any harm. I think that there are a lot of people celebrated in our culture right now that making their art is really taking a toll on the people around them, and the fact that they've made great art allows them to get away with things. And so I think there's F. Scott Fitzgerald, he said that the key to having a mature mind was being able to keep two opposing thoughts in your head at the same time and not go crazy. And it is very true that we have to acknowledge that people who are not beautiful people inside can make things that are beautiful or useful or helpful to us. And that is just a fact that, you look through the centuries of art history, that has been the case. Not so great human beings have made sublime or wonderful art. And so part of how we process that knowledge is part of our own work, and it's our work as artists and our work as fans, and we have to kind of figure out who we want to celebrate and how, and what we want to do with our own lives.
Right. I love this because this is kind of how I set up my life and my work. You say creativity has seasons. So what does that mean for you?
For me, that means that creativity is not on any kind of industrial time cycle. It's not, you can't necessarily be on a production line type of schedule with a lot of creative work. We all have kind of internal seasons, and sometimes it seems like people look at us and it seems like winter, that we're not doing anything, but actually inside of us there are things that are growing and percolating, and ideas are sort of forming. And I think it's really important for an artist to know, or a creative person, or anyone who does any kind of work, to understand that there are seasons in the work, and that there's a time and a place for all kinds of different work. So, for example, right now, I'm in the promotional season of doing a book. Like, the book's done, and now I'm out on the road, and I'm selling it, and I'm talking about it. And I know that this is a particular season. It's sort of like the harvest is in, and now I've taken the goods to the farmer's market, you know?
Right, right. So when as creatives, when we turn our passion into a money-making practice, we can face a lot of different challenges. And one of them, of course, is what idealists would call selling out. You know, we sell out commercially to make money. And you quite rightly say that money is not the only measurement that can corrupt the creative practice. Would you elaborate on that for us?
Well, so we all have the ability now to kind of share whatever we want of our creative work at any time. I mean, and one of the things that happens on a lot of these social media platforms that we share on is that we then have kind of like quantitative metrics on what the thing has done out in the world. So, you know, you post one of your art pieces on Instagram, and immediately you can see how many likes it gets. But what do likes really tell us about the work we're making? I mean, you know, Picasso didn't have a like button underneath his painting. You know, a like is simply that a lot of times when people click the like button, it just means that you fired some sort of dopamine hit in their brain.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't even necessarily mean that they will think about that image next week or a month from now. And so we have to be careful that these metrics that you're kind of forced to use the minute you interact with these platforms, we have to be careful about the metrics and using that to measure our work. Because we all kind of know the experience of having something really close to us and sharing it, and it's almost like crickets chirp. And then, you know, sometimes we'll share something that we don't feel particularly close to, and that seems to be the thing that everyone loves.
And you write about that in the book, and you say sometimes you think people are going to rave about something, and you get those crickets, right? And it's a surprise, and I've kind of found the same thing. Sometimes I think things that will really resonate may not, and other things that maybe I don't resonate with just go off like fire.
Yeah, I mean, and it illuminates something about the process of creative work, which is the audience, the person on the other end, is really half of the equation. So when I write a book, it's great, it's there, it's a book, it's there for you to read, but what you bring to the book is just as important as what I did with it, because if you're not ready for this book, if you're not ready to kind of accept what's in it, in a sense, or you can't handle it, then it's not going to be a good reading experience, you know. And so that happens in a lot of different kinds of work. The audience or the reader or whoever's on the other end, they have a big part to play in the work.
And like many creatives, you've had to learn to say no and mean no. Tell us how you've embraced that.
Well, I'm a Midwestern. You know, I grew up in the middle of a cornfield. I come from nice, you know, I come from nice, helpful people, and I always want to say yes to people because I want them to like me. But part of, you know, getting my work done now, because I'm a guy who's, you know, I have a pretty decent sized audience, but I also have like a young family, and I'm trying to do my thing, is I have to say no to a lot of people. And I have to kind of disappoint a lot of people in what they want from me, and that's part of the work. Part of my work is not just doing the work, but it's protecting the time to do the work. So we all have to say no to things, and that's just part of our job.
You write that your kids are an inspiration to you. Everything you do is for your kids. How have you learned to rejuvenate yourself so that you can be present for your work and for your family? You share a lot of these tips in the book, but share something that's really maybe your go-to number one.
Well, I love including my kids as much as I can in my workplace, and I know that's hard for a lot of people, but you know, my job is to draw pictures and to write stories, kind of. And kids love that. So I'll bring my kids in the studio with me, and they will play alongside me. But I think in some ways, as far as being present and available, I just think just pulling yourself out, because, when you have your phone with you all the time, you've got a new book out or something's going on at work or whatever, it's very easy to be on your phone and to be distracted from work all the time and to not be present for your family. So one of the things I use a lot is airplane mode on my phone. My family and I, we also go for long walks together. I think walking is kind of this magical thing that, connects you with your environment.
Me too.
Kind of frees you up. And so those are the kinds of things. Just trying to, really engage with your everyday surroundings instead of constantly being distracted by the screens is probably the most important thing, I'd say, these days.
Right. Well, I know we have to let you go, Austin. What's the final quick thought you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
I would like to tell you that if you're thinking about giving up, you're not the only one. It's rough out there. The world's always been crazy, and art's always been hard. Work's always been hard, and you just can't give up. Just keep going. Finish today and be done with it, and take tomorrow and try to do with it what you can.
And that was Austin Kleon. You can find out much more about Austin and his work at austinkleon.com. His book again, Keep Going, 10 Ways to Stay Creative in Good Times and Bad. Coming up next, National Geographic Backyard Guide to the Night Sky. And you'll hear from the night sky guy himself, Andrew Fazekas. That's a tongue twister. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're listening to Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair.
Parkinson's disease affects as many as 1 million people in the United States. At the Parkinson's Disease Foundation, it's our mission to beat this disease. To learn about the Parkinson's Disease Foundation, or if you want to help support our work, visit our website, pdf.org, or call us at 800-457-6676. In the Northwest, contact the Northwest Parkinson's Foundation at nwpf.org.
Let's see if I guess that this just isn't working.
Knowing you have a great idea for a book is one thing, writing it another. So what's stopping you? Maybe you can't find time. Maybe you don't know where to begin. Maybe you wrote a couple of chapters, then disappeared down a rabbit hole. Or maybe you'd rather someone else write it for you. Partnering with the right coach or ghostwriter can make all the difference between talking about your book and finishing your book. As an award-winning writer and strategic consultant, Vicki St. Clair's storytelling credits span from business, health, self-help, and memoir to New York Times and USA Today best-selling anthologies. Vicki partners with people just like you at the exact level you need, whether you need a little encouragement, editorial guidance, or full-blown ghostwriting and consulting services. If you're serious about telling the story you know is inside you, stop procrastinating. Let's get your story down on paper. Contact Vicki today. Email Vicki at VickiSt.Clair.com or call 1-800-495-7617. See more about Vicki and her work at VickiSt.Clair.com.
Oh, yeah, that could work.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair airs live every Monday at noon. And now you can also catch the show during drive time at 6 a.m. every Friday. Hear from New York Times bestselling authors, innovative business leaders, cutting-edge health and wellness professionals, award-winning journalists, filmmakers, explorers, and adventurers. Tune in to Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair, Mondays at noon Pacific Time and Fridays at 6 a.m. right here on Alternative Talk 1150.
Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair. Ordinary people leading extraordinary lives. Advertise. Learn more at conversationslive.net.
You found us. Maybe you've been guided to listen. Alternative Talk 1150.
'Cause you're a sky full of stars. I'm gonna give you my heart.
And welcome back, everyone. So coming up now, we're talking with Andrew Fazekas, a.k.a. the Night Sky Guy. He has a passion for night skies that is absolutely contagious. His new book with National Geographic is A Backyard Guide to the Night Sky. It is full of really fascinating information, fun facts, and, of course, fabulous pictures that you'd expect from National Geographic. The book takes an expert but easygoing approach. It's suitable for all ages and would-be astronomers at all levels. Andrew Fazekas is a science writer, speaker, broadcaster, and he shares his passion for the wonders of the universe in all media. He writes the popular online column Starstruck for National Geographic, and he's the author of the book Star Trek, The Official Guide to Our Universe. He's a syndicated correspondent for TV and radio networks and the communications manager for Astronomers Without Borders. He's also the co-creator of the world's first open air augmented reality planetarium experience, which is up in Canada. And he and his team are partnering with National Geographic to expand this concept globally. It's very exciting. Here's our conversation, Andrew Fazekas, and he says he's never met a night sky he didn't like. You are also known, Andrew, as the Night Sky Guy. I understand you've been doing this for a long time, for like 40 years or so. So you began this as a fascination as a kid. What was it that drew you to the night sky?
Well, it's seared in my brain. The earliest memories are really sitting in my father's lap and looking through his department store telescope. We lived in downtown Montreal, Canada, in an apartment building. We would go to the rooftop, and this is a really young age in the 70s, and even though there was a lot of light pollution around, we were in the middle of the city, I was able to see through that telescope wonders that really has stayed with me for the entire life. I was looking at craters of the moon, looking at the moons of Jupiter, seeing the rings of Saturn. These are really fond memories for me, and it sparked a lifelong journey in exploring the night sky and sharing my passion with others. It just tickles me pink just to be able to inspire people about the night sky, and it's very infectious, and it's something that I'm very fortunate to have now transformed my hobby into a profession of being able to, as a professional astronomy communicator,
Right.
get people exploring the cosmos.
Often, when we take our passion, this was going to be one of my questions, Andrew, so we'll just jump straight into that here. But often when we take our passion and it becomes our job, it becomes less of a passion for us. And I was going to ask you what still gives you goosebumps, and it sounds as though everything does to do with this.
Well, for me, it's a lot of it is having the opportunity to engage with some of the frontline researchers and discoverers. Part of my my job is really to translate all that science gobbledygook that really is very difficult to understand for lay people, and sort of distill it into easy to understand terms and something that also engages people. And so what gives me goosebumps is being able to see a professional astronomer at work, getting back data of, say, a planet that's orbiting a star 500 light years away, and that data that he's gotten, nobody's seen. Those images nobody in the world has seen before, no human eye, and it holds secrets of perhaps that this is a habitable planet that's so far distant. Could there be life on it? And to have that ability to really explore that with a professional astronomer is amazing, and then be able to convey that. My excitement is very childlike when it comes to the cosmos, and this is and being able to just go out to the night sky. Believe it or not, Vicki, I love just spending time going out to the night sky, and what I get a kick out of is sharing that with my children as well.
Wow.
I have two daughters, 9 and 11, and I love sitting out in the backyard on a blanket with them and pointing out things in the sky and sharing those stories with them, and these are the things that still, after so many years, there's never enough that I can get out of it.
Right. Well, you also say it's the cheapest hobby because you can just zip out into the back garden and sit there on a blanket. And I certainly remember as a kid, I thought my dad was so clever because he could point out certain aspects of the sky. So I'm sure your kids appreciate it too.
Oh my goodness. And Vicki, now some of the things with the technology, like for instance, satellite watching is a big thing. And if you want to be a really big hit as a parent with a kid, is if you can determine what satellite and when it magically appears and glides over your overhead sky, it's like magic, that. Of course, it's not magic. There's apps for this where you can actually go online and it'll tell you when the International Space Station comes around and does a flyover. But boy, that looks like magic. You want to be the hit of a barbecue party in the summer. You can do that. Say, hey guys, look over there. 1, 2, 3. There you go. There's the space station coming by, and it's like wow. And
right.
You can still get that wow factor today, like never before.
Right. Absolutely. One of the projects that I thought sounded really interesting that you work on, you're also co-creator of the world's first open-air augmented reality planetarium experience. And that is going to be at some point taken globally. It's in Canada right now. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll dive into some of the facts from the book.
Well, yeah, I'm very excited about this project. Yes, it's something that's now based in Quebec, Canada. We're running a pilot project where we're testing out basically augmented reality glasses. What that is that it's using glasses and smartphones. We're able to paint a virtual picture of a digital picture of the sky onto the real sky in front of a viewer. And what the audience wearing headsets can actually see through the headsets the real sky, and on top of that sky is painted a digital version of it. So that would mean that you would actually see the mythological characters, the ancient mythological characters, with the connected with the lines that form the constellations, and even the names of the stars and planets. All of that are painted on top of the real sky. And it moves dynamically. As you move your head, new pictures pop up layered on top of the real sky. So this is a very new concept. It's very exciting because it's a new way to engage people with the night sky and get them all excited about exploring the cosmos like never before. And we're hoping that within the next year or two, we'll be able to take this globally and have outdoor planetariums like that in national and state parks and cruise lines and lodges and different planetariums too, a lot of different locations.
Fascinating. So we've just hit spring, and in the book you have a seasonal calendar in there, and you say that spring is galaxy hunting season. What does that mean?
Well, spring is really interesting because if you look at the sky, typically across everywhere in the northern hemisphere, wherever you are, you look at the evening sky, and what you may notice after coming off of the winter sky, that there's a sparsity of really truly bright stars. There's more of the star. There's more blank dark space in the spring sky, and that's because our view from our vantage point here on Earth, we have a window during the springtime of where we don't have the stars that are nearby blocking the view from the entire universe outside of the Milky Way galaxy. So just to set the scene, Vicki, we are on a planet, third planet around the sun, that our sun is one of over 100 billion other suns that make up what we call the Milky Way galaxy, this island of stars, of over 100 billion stars, in a pinwheel-shaped configuration. And we are just one galaxy of billions of others in the universe. And what happens is that in the summertime and in the wintertime, we see a lot of the stars that are within our Milky Way galaxy in the sky. But and they're so bright and there's so many of them, they're blocking the view of everything else outside of our galaxy. So during the springtime, it's a really special time and fall as well, these two time seasons are where we have a window here in the evening time to see beyond the Milky Way. And this is where we're looking at distances of tens to hundreds of millions of light years distance and seeing other galaxies like our Milky Way that are visible. And it's incredible to think that with binoculars and backyard telescopes, we can travel to halfway across the entire universe, billions of light years away, just from our backyard.
Yeah, it's incredible. I read that not all stars twinkle. Why do some twinkle and some don't twinkle?
Right, the twinkling effect. Well, that's really due to the Earth's atmosphere. It's not necessarily the light. Now, I'll have a caveat to the little asterisk, actually, to that statement. But first, let me say that generally stars don't twinkle. That when you see them shimmering like that in the sky, that's usually an effect of something nearby, a pollution or particulate matter in the atmosphere that is making it shimmer. What you may notice is that stars that are high overhead don't twinkle as the ones that are near the horizon. That's because the starlight has to travel through a thick column of Earth's atmosphere when you're looking to something near the horizon. And so you can think of it very much like if you were next to a pool, backyard swimming pool, and you threw a penny into the swimming pool, and you look at the penny at the bottom of the pool, you're not going to see it very clearly, are you? It's going to be kind of blurry and wavy. That's the same idea of looking at stars through Earth's atmosphere. Everything is slightly blurred, and the stars are so far away that the beam of light is very, very thin. It's needle thin, and that little needle-thin starlight penetrates Earth's atmosphere, it gets scattered by the molecules of the atmosphere, by dust in the atmosphere, and that's what makes it shimmer and sparkle and twinkle. Now, with that said, Vicki, there are actually stars out there that do change in light, in the brightness of light. They're called variable stars. That's one of the fun things that I explore in my book, is that you can actually choose certain stars that actually change their brightness intrinsically, meaning they actually wink out. There's one star called the Demon Star that's visible in the autumn skies, that one day you can clearly see it with the naked eye from the city, even under a light polluted city, and then 2-3 days later it just disappears. And then a day later it comes back again. It's incredible, and that's really these are variable stars that the engine inside of them are kind of haltering, and they sputter, and that's what you're seeing happen? The effect is that they dim and then they brighten again. So there's all kinds of cool stuff like that in the sky.
Yeah, fascinating. Why do we get a green flash? We've only got a minute left here, Andrew, but I've seen one green flash in my lifetime, and I've seen hundreds of sunsets. Why do we get that green flash?
Well, the green flash is a very rare phenomenon that occurs when the sun is very near the horizon, and again, we're looking through a very thick portion of the atmosphere, and it can only happen during sunsets, and it's an atmospheric effect of the sunlight going through and refracting through the atmosphere of the Earth, and it's the same kind of physics that goes on as when you see the sunlight turning orange and red during sunsets. So they're usually seen along coastlines. Over the ocean,
right.
And they're very, very bright. I mean, it's sort of like the light of the sun going through kind of like a prism and being kind of separated out into different colors, and that green color is really the one that pops out. And in nature, that green color, and when it comes to starlight, is very, very rare, and that's why this kind of really is a special thing that only here on Earth can we ever experience, kind of one of these green flashes from sunsets.
So absolutely fascinating. The book is awesome, really awesome. Your excitement comes through on every single page, and it's just full of really great information. I could ask you 100 more questions, but we're out of time. So a final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with today, Andrew?
Well, I'm hoping that if people feel free to contact me about questions about telescopes and stargazing, how to get started, how to get your kids involved. I'd love to help anyone out there. My website is thenightskyguy.com. I've got links to my book, even the snapshots from the book, and I've got sky charts about what's happening with the night sky on my social media feeds, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I invite people to follow me on all my channels and explore the night sky with me.
Andrew Fazekas, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure, and I wish you and all your listeners clear skies.
And you can find out more about Andrew again at thenightsky.com. And you can find out more about National Geographic Starstruck Initiative, celebrating the past, present, and future of space exploration, and the upcoming 50th anniversary of the Apollo moon landing at their website. You can just type National Geographic Starstruck into your browser and it will pop straight up. If you have a pen handy, you can write down nationalgeographic.com/science/starstruck. And coming up next, sexologist and psychotherapist Dr. Tammy Nelson highlights common misconceptions around affairs in her new book, When You're the One Who Cheats. Please stay with us. You're listening to Conversations Live with Vicky St. Clair. We'll be right back.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. There's a million little lights when the sky turns black tonight. Are there patterns?
I'm Paul George of the Indiana Pacers. When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke. So I want you to learn to spot a stroke fast. F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. I'm Paul George. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
This is Martha Norwalk. Every Sunday morning, beginning at 9 a.m., thanks in part to New Pro Supplements, we cover the world of animals. This week, October 20th, it's Behavior Training and Healing Sunday with me, and I've got company. Russell Nelson from the Academy of Canine Behavior will be joining me. We'll talk about behavior and training stuff, answer your questions, and find out more about how the Academy can help our animal friends. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Do something different with your spare time. Give baby animals at Paws a fresh start. With the assistance of caring volunteers, Paws helps hundreds of orphaned and sick kittens and puppies each year. Join us and save lives. Become a Paws foster care volunteer. For more information, visit paws.org or 425-787-2500. paws.org or 425-787-2500.
Sensory sensitivity, repetitious behavior, lack of eye contact. You can see signs of autism in children as young as 18 months. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Next week on Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair. Relationships. They can be as easy or as difficult as we make them. Psychologists and relationship experts Dr. James Crichton and Dr. Ronald Frederick join us to help smooth the way with insights from their new books, Loving Through Your Differences and Loving Like You Mean It. Catch us live Mondays at noon Pacific and again Fridays at 6 a.m. Find more details at conversationslive.net.
Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair. Listeners trust the show and advertisers love the audience. Learn more at conversationslive.net.
Talk radio for the heart and soul. Alternative Talk 1150.
And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Well, we're certainly changing up our topics today. Joining me now, Dr. Tammy Nelson joins us for When You're the One Who Cheats. It's a new book. She is a board-certified sexologist and certified sex therapist, a certified Imago relationship therapist. She's an international speaker and licensed psychotherapist in private practice, working with couples and individuals. We talked with her last time about her book, New Monogamy. And today we're talking about her latest, When You're the One Who Cheats. 10 Things You Need to Know. Dr. Tammy Nelson, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I want to just jump straight in here because we don't have a great deal of time. And you say you hope this book will serve as a constructive educational resource for people looking to make sense of their extramarital behavior and how to move forward. And to get this information, I mean, obviously you practice this on a daily basis in your practice with your clients, but you also interviewed people specifically for the book. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I was able to interview people on Ashley Madison, which is a website for people who are specifically seeking out affairs. And there is like 60 million people on this website worldwide. And so there's a lot of cheating going on, which is no surprise to your listeners, I'm sure. But what was interesting about that is that there are as many men as there are women that sign up for memberships on the website. So I got to interview people who are currently having affairs, who are either struggling with the idea of being honest, or who are cheating to stay in their marriage. And I found it all very fascinating.
Right. And so, there's been a lot of controversy around that website you just mentioned, so I don't really want to focus on that for the purposes of our conversation. But you say that cheaters are often just as confused as the spouse they cheat on. Really? Or is that just another excuse?
Well, there's certainly a lot of excuses. I think that people cheat for two reasons, or two categories of reasons. One is that they cheat to get out of their marriage, and so I call those a can opener affair. You know, sometimes people cheat because they want their partner to break up with them, or it's kind of passive-aggressive way of saying, I want out, but I'm too chicken to get out. And it's kind of a way of saying, I want my partner to break up with me, or I want to have this invisible divorce where I have this parallel relationship going on, and they don't want to face up to the truth of what's happening in their relationship. And then there's this whole other category of affair where people are doing it not because they want to find someone else, but because they almost want to be someone else. And in that case, it really has nothing to do with their marriage. And, you know, if you've ever been cheated on, that doesn't really feel good to hear me say that. And I know because I've been in that situation. But the reality is that people really do look to an outside relationship many times to become a different part of themselves. And I don't think anyone really would argue with that unless they're being cheated on and they're like, well, I don't really care. I don't care who you tried to become.
Right, right. You say in a typical monogamous marriage, the very second you cross that line into cheating behavior, you've ended the marriage.
Yeah, because I think monogamy has become synonymous with marriage. And so we know that when we get married, there is an implicit and an explicit assumption that you're not going to cheat. So the minute you cheat, you know that you're going over a line that you promised never to cross. So it's not like affairs happen by accident. No one cheats and says, oh, my God, I didn't know how that happened.
But they do say, oh, it just happened.
Yeah, that's a lie. That's like one of the number one lies about affairs. I don't know how that happened. If you wake up the next morning and you don't know how that happened, you either have a drinking problem and you need to get some treatment, or you were roofied and you need to get some legal help. So other than that, it doesn't just happen. People plan it. It takes some planning. It takes some pre-consideration. And so affairs don't just happen. Right. There is an opening that you're working it out first for a while.
You say this kind of surprised me. Okay, so I was reading through the book and reading some of the comments that people made when they were talking with you about affairs, and one woman in particular got very offended by the word cheater. Yes, she's cheating on her husband, but she said cheaters are bad people. I'm not a bad person, and yet she's having this illicit affair. I didn't see a lot in the book, and maybe I missed this, Tammy, so address it, if it was there. I didn't see a lot of cheaters saying things like, I betrayed my partner, I've deceived my partner. It was mostly about them and what they wanted from this cheating affair.
Yeah, and I think that there is a dilemma of integrity around affairs, for sure. I didn't sense that people were, waking up in the morning and going, oh, I really want to hurt my partner. I think it definitely is about their own needs, and then they struggle with, what are they loyal to? So people are normally loyal to their own integrity, like their own belief about what they need, much more so than they are about what the other person needs. But I find that people are primarily committed to the agreement that they make between two people. And so what changes in their mind is the agreement. Not necessarily that they're not committed to the other person, but they're committing to an agreement that in their mind somehow is shifted. So in other words, well, you stopped having sex with me, so I feel like the agreement has changed. Or I stopped loving you, so I feel like the agreement has changed. Or, there's this justification because the agreement is no longer what they committed to. Right.
Right, and I get that totally, but it would help if we communicated before we got to that point, right?
And that's an imperative too. And I think that there's a confusion in people who cheat that they justify, I don't want to hurt my partner. And so if I tell them, then not only will I not be able to do it, but I will somehow be causing them some kind of pain that I'll avoid if I don't tell them. And that's a dilemma. Like, where are we in our whole culture around telling the truth? Like, what does integrity really mean?
Yeah.
Are we protecting people by lying? Or, I really wrote this book because I was obsessed with this idea of truth. Like, what does it mean to tell yourself the truth, or to tell your cheating partner the truth, or your marital partner the truth? Like, I'm really intrigued by this idea of how people process this idea of telling the truth. And what does that mean?
Right.
I find it interesting.
Right. And you said in the book, which I found interesting too, and I've seen this with friends who've, had been cheated on and cheated themselves, but you say they need cheaters need to get out of denial. They often build a case for why they're cheating. They build up resentment and use that as ammunition against their spouse, their partner.
Yeah, and what I'm really hoping to say in the book is, look, don't blame anybody for your affair. The first thing people do is start blaming their partner or blaming their marriage. This is why I did it. Even when they apologize, they say, well, I did it because I wasn't happy in the marriage, or I did it because I wasn't getting enough of this or too much of that. And that I'd like to just take out of the whole narrative. You didn't cheat because you weren't getting enough. You didn't cheat because your partner didn't do this for you. You cheated because you made a choice to get your needs met from a different place.
Right.
And so I think you have to take responsibility, first of all, for your own behavior and stop blaming anybody else. It's not your therapist's fault or your mother's fault. I'm a mother, so I just throw that in. And it's certainly not your wife or your husband's fault.
Right.
That you can't be who you want to be in the marriage.
Right. We've only got a couple of minutes here left, and I want to get this in because you say the number one question the partner who's been betrayed will ask is why. Does any answer ever satisfy that question?
Well, I think it's really difficult because the first thing that the cheater will say is, I did this because of something missing in you. And I did this because something's missing in the marriage, which implies there's something missing in you.
Right.
And so that doesn't really answer the question of why. Why, the first thing that should come out of the cheater's mouth is, I was missing something in myself. And I was searching for this in me. Not because I was bored or I was lonely or I needed better sex. Or the why question is never about the other things around you that are wrong in your life. It's always a deeper question that demands a little bit more insight. And if you can't figure that out, you should go to therapy and figure it out, because it really is like an existential crisis at that point.
Yeah. And, I think the thing is that at the end of the day, that new person is going to become that old person someday.
I mean, the affair partner can never live up to the affair partner.
Right. So no listeners can find out much more about you at drtammynelson.com. A quick final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with, Tammy?
Yeah, I think, we all at certain points of our lives want more. We want more for ourselves. We want more out of our lives. And so I don't think cheaters in general are bad people necessarily. I think that we all have to look at what it means to live in integrity, and that means integrating all the parts of ourselves. We're so compartmentalized in our culture. We hide so many parts of us that I think we're all struggling with this idea of what it means to live in an open, truthful, honest relationship. And I think that's a struggle.
Yeah, wise words. Dr. Tammy Nelson, thank you for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Oh, love being with you. Thanks, Vicki.
And the book, again, is called When You're the One Who Cheats, 10 Things You Need to Know. So I think whether you're being cheated on or if you're cheating, this is you might find some good tips in here. And I'm going to leave you with Sir Walter Scott's words here, because I love this phrase, oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. And that brings us to the end of today's show. You can find me at conversationslive.net. You can reach me by phone at 800-495-7617. You can find us on Twitter at Vicki St. Clair and Facebook at Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair. Until next week, live well, live strong.
Radio is very competitive. Shows soar in popularity and then flame out. Sometimes, however, a real connection is made with an audience, and success blooms year after year. For over a decade, Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair has built a loyal following thanks to inspiring and stimulating conversation. Longevity, loyalty, exclusivity. Smart advertisers seek it out. With Vicki's valuable audience, the search is over. Discover the affordable, effective ways to advertise your business. Log on to conversationslive.net. That's conversationslive.net today.
The program that just aired is an encore presentation of Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair. Vicki returns to broadcast live in studio in November. You can contact Vicki at conversationslive.net.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of KKNW, its management, or other advertisers. Contests are the responsibility of the host of this program and not KKNW. This is Alternative Talk 1150 AM, KKNW Seattle, and KNUC 98.9 HD3 Seattle.
Well, good afternoon. Eric Ryder here with you on Alternative Talk 1150 AM. We are headed towards 1 o'clock. Time for a quick look at our traffic. Things looking very good around the sound at this hour with no blocking incidents or major slowdowns. Stay tuned to Alternative Talk 1150 AM. Coming up, it's So You Think You're Awake with your host, Michael Sheridan. It's our Dream Interpretation Show. Brought to you by Ashling Dream Interpretation. Right now, 55 degrees, sunny skies here in the Puget Sound.
Resigned before firing, sanctions talk. I'm Barbara Cusack. The white Fort Worth, Texas police officer who fatally shot a 28-year-old black woman in her home over the weekend has resigned.
Had the officer not resigned, I would have fired him for violations of several policies, including our use of force policy, our de-escalation policy, and unprofessional conduct.
Interim Police Chief Ed Krause said he had intended to fire the officer when the two were set to meet today. Correspondent Clayton Neville fills us in on what body cam footage revealed.
Body cam footage released by Fort Worth police shows the officer firing his weapon seconds after noticing movement inside the home, killing a Tatiana Jefferson.
The officer may face criminal charges. While not second-guessing his decision to move American troops out of the way of Turkey's attempts to eliminate Kurds in northern Syria, President Trump is threatening sanctions on Turkey.
The president tweeting, "Big sanctions on Turkey coming." In the same tweets, however, he looks to justify his decision to withdraw U.S. influence in Syria as Turkey and militias backing it fight against Kurds. Sanctions fall under the Treasury Department, with Secretary Steve Mnuchin at the White House.
We're monitoring the situation carefully. The sanctions are ready to go.
Infuriated Senate Republicans vow to lead the effort for tough sanctions on Turkey if Mr. Trump does not act. They accuse him of abandoning the Kurds. Bob Costantini, Washington.
The 2019 Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences has been awarded to Abhijit Banerjee, Esther Duflo, and Michael Kremer for their experimental approach to alleviating global poverty. Banerjee and Duflo hail from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, while Kremer is at Harvard University. South Korean pop star and actress Suli was found dead at her home south of Seoul today. She was 25 years old. I'm Barbara Cusack.
Time now for a quick look at our weather outlook. Partly cloudy skies expected tonight. We'll see a low around 47, mostly cloudy for our Tuesday with a high near 60. Showers moving in Tuesday night and hanging around for Wednesday. We'll see a high near 59 and a low around 51. Looks like could be a bit windy on Wednesday as well.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of KKNW, its management, or other advertisers. This program is sponsored by Ashling Dream Interpretation.
Welcome to So You Think You're Awake with Michael Sheridan.
Hello, and welcome to So You Think You're Awake, the show about life transformation through dream interpretation. I'm Michael Sheridan. On this show, through analyzing your dreams, I reveal your potential and the obstacles you need to overcome. I'm very specific. I tell you the magic power you have, what makes you magnificent, and the bumps in life that are holding you back. These bumps are not in the way, they are the way. To get in on the action, go to dream-analysis.com, fill in the form, and submit your dream to this show. That's it. That's all you have to do. Yesterday, my wife and I attended Susan Sinclair's presentation, or workshop, I should say, on clearing spaces. Didn't really know what to expect, but it was different, so I wanted to do it, and it was absolutely fantastic. She really knows that subject well, and it's a subject area that a lot of people stay away from. A lot of people don't want to go near that, even people with many years in the spiritual field. So yeah, very, very entertaining, very practical, And I hope I'll have her on the show again sometime soon. I had her on the show a few years ago. Her real strength is sound healing, and we had her on the show for that. But I'm hoping that I'll have her on the show again soon to talk about what she does and how she clears spaces. So anyway, this week I'm just going to launch straight into it and cover some dreams. And I'm going to make no apologies for the lengths of dreams. Normally I try to find dreams that are quite short because they're more punchy. But there are some really interesting dreams here that are a little bit longer, but I'll explain them as I go into them. And the first one is from Shelley. In fact, we're going to have a look at two of her dreams. She says, I was in my childhood home and followed a woman out the front door. She was wearing a long flowing dress that was almost floating out around her, and I think she had brown hair. When we got outside, the sky was cloudy and the driveway and front yard were covered in shallow water, like maybe 6 inches deep at most. The water looked murky and contaminated, and just when I thought we shouldn't go out in it, the woman ran out straight ahead of me, and my dog came from behind me and ran to the left, out of sight, to the side yard. I was worried that my dog would get sick from playing in it, but just as I thought that, the woman turned back to look at me. She told me not to worry, that it was perfectly safe. Then she summoned me to come out there with her. I reluctantly followed her. Okay, so when we see shallow water in a dream like this, we know it's about deepening your spirituality, and that's what you're here for. That's one of the things you're being asked to do right now. We know the childhood home brings you back to childhood, so there's something going on now that, in fact, we can tell from the dream because you're reluctant to go out the door. It's to do with a reluctance to do something, to get into something. And this dream connects it back with birth and connects it with mom because we have a woman in the dream. And we see your worries about going outside, worries about being sick. And you think that the water is contaminated. Now, normally, contaminated water is about your circulatory system and not about spiritual stuff. But it's different in your case. You just think it is contaminated, even though it isn't. Well, we'll get into that in a bit. But I did ask you what has been going on that you think this reluctance is related to. And you said it's definitely related to your business. You said you were in business for yourself in September 16 to until last year when you finished to have your first child. Congratulations there. And you said, I'm skipping a lot here, you said, but getting back into it, you've been terrified, hence the reluctance to go through the door, and for a number of reasons. I don't know how to package my gifts, as I have so many, and they all feel equally important. I don't know how to describe to people what I do, and I'm terrified that those not in the spiritual or metaphysical community will not understand and think I'm crazy. I'm afraid to be seen as my true self. Now, that's the big one. Afraid to be seen as your true self. And that one's why we're all here, because we're afraid to be seen as our true selves. And of course, this is what you've got to fix. So you're saying that you're afraid to do this for various reasons. And I'll go back to your email because you gave a nice lengthy answer to my questions. And I'll get into more of it and explain some more of it, some more of what I got. But we're all here to learn to be ourselves in front of other people. So when you find yourself saying, okay, I'm afraid to do this because people will think I'm crazy, then that's the thing you need to do. If you doing that thing is going to be you being yourself, that is exactly the right thing to do. Life is not about changing yourself to accommodate other people. And, so it sounds so obvious, I'm sure, as I'm saying it to you, it'll sound obvious, but you've got to go back to your start in life, your birth, because this is right after you come out the front door. We have the reluctance. So we know that this reluctance is connected to issues at the start of your life, and that's where you need to do the work. Incidentally, since I'm known as a dream guy, but that's what I do. The big thing I do is help people heal the issues in their childhood. Anyway, back to your dream. You say, when I got out into the water, I was surprised to find it felt cool, healing, and refreshing. Yay! It made me feel alive and like I got a second wind. Now, a second wind because you're going to be getting into business again for the second time. I then felt called to turn around and look back at the house. When I did, the house didn't grab my attention at all, as just behind it loomed 4 giant totem poles. There, I got the sentence out. The two on the left were slightly shorter than the two on the right. Each pair were equal size, and all of them were much taller than any tree. I felt awe, reverence, and a sense of homecoming as I looked at them. Just beyond them was a massive mountain. It was so large and close that it was just a giant wall of grey rock, and there was no way I could see to the top, both because it was too big, but also because it was covered in wispy clouds. Again, I was in awe of the beauty and majesty and felt reverence and homecoming. So there's your dream. There's the first dream. So what did the totem poles and the mountain represent? Well, this is something I had in the show recently. Extremely tall mountains like that represent a prophetic ability. And I've scanned through some of your other dreams because of the email that you sent, and you definitely have a prophetic ability. We see you dreaming of eagles, for instance, in one of your dreams that you sent in. But that's what the totem poles here represent. You have a channeling ability that works with a prophetic ability. And the dream correctly has you in awe of the beauty and majesty of your gifts. And that's the key. That's what you're meant to do. So look back, heal the issues on your childhood, and really the outcome is going to be that you see these abilities in much greater clarity. So really good. Did I skip anything there? I don't think so. So your next dream, and this is the one this is why I wanted to include your dreams on the show. You say, I was in a dark city street in London, and you don't live in London. There was a building in front of me that had all the lights out and was a whole wall of windows and a door. I think it was supposed to be a pub. The building was at the end of a street so that it created a dead end. So the dead end doesn't sound good, does it? So let's continue on. Two elderly women came out of the building and told me they needed to give me a psychic reading and a healing session. One of the women was the psychic and the other was her assistant. They were both dressed like gypsies. The psychic went back into the building and the assistant stayed out with me so she could give me directions during the reading. So 2 is about channeling, and so we have the two elderly women. One, are they both dressed like gypsies? Well, who dresses like gypsies? Fortune tellers. I mean, it's the classic image you would have of it. Even had an image of a gypsy looking into a crystal ball on my own website when I was talking about that gift. So this is going to be about your prophetic ability and also your channeling ability, because we have the two women. So it's basically you're going to get assistance from your guides when you are using your prophetic ability. And you say she was going to give me a psychic reading and a healing session. So we also know you're psychic and you're a healer. So a few different gifts. The door dissolved after the psychic entered the building, so that now the whole front of the building consisted of only windows, which were in 2 stacked rows. I think it was 2 rows of 4 windows. Remember the totem poles now. This is the same kind of thing. So 8 in total. All of a sudden, I saw a bunch of lights in the window. They weren't coming from inside the building, but were more like lights being reflected in the windows from the outside. But the lights weren't on in the street. They were just magically reflected in the windows from seemingly nowhere. Okay, I absolutely love this. So this is how the prophetic ability works. And I've mentioned it many times on the show, but I've never described this part because nobody's ever had it the way you have it. So we always associate prophetics with the crystal ball. But how does that work? And, if you don't have a crystal ball, that's fine. You know what you can use? If you have a glass that has a kind of a ball in the stem, you can use that. So what you do is whoever you're giving a reading for, they sit opposite you. You look into the crystal ball so that you move your position so that you can see them in the ball, but they will be upside down because that's the way that works. And same if you're using a wine glass, it's going to be the same. And put the wine glass down. Don't hold it up to them and that. Try get it to where you can relax and be comfortable. And so you will see them upside down, and eventually, not eventually, but that image will fade. If you have this ability, that image will fade and it'll be replaced with something else that you need to see. And it's absolutely fantastic. Now, you in the dream, you said it magically appears as if out of nowhere. So it's really cool. If you've got this ability, then definitely try that because you will be totally enamored. But that's how it works. Anyway, and of course, then you're going to see stuff. But in your case, your guides are going to walk you through what you're seeing and how to take it from there. Anyway, We continue on. The assistant asked me if I saw any lights. I told her yes, a lot of lights. She asked me to tell her what colors I saw. The lights changed colors, sizes, number, location. I told her what I saw as they changed. I remember green and purple. Now, green is about the heart. This is where you need to work on issues around mom. And the purple here is about relaxing the mind. They were the most consistent colors, but I think they were also the occasional red. That's fine. Red is about passion and so on for this. There was also a moment where bright yellow car headlights were reflected in the windows. I thought they were coming from a car driving down the street behind us, but when I turned around, there was no car there. Wow, cue the Twilight Zone music. Then the lights in the windows faded, and suddenly there were people in the windows. Each window contained 2 to 4 people that were posing like in a family portrait. So again, this is how it happens. The image fades and other things take the place. The portrait took up the entire window frame. Again, this was not people looking out of the window from the inside the building, but more like painted portraits being reflected onto the window from a mysterious place. Again, that's how it works. It's great. The people in the portraits were wearing old-fashioned clothes that reminded me of Bob Cratchit from A Christmas Story. So they were maybe from the 1800s, and the people were not wealthy. Some of them were even grotesque and scared me a bit. It's important to mention too that the people in the portraits were moving. It reminded me of the portraits at Hogwarts in Harry Potter. Each portrait had at least one child in it and adults of varying ages. The assistant asked if I could see the portraits. When I confirmed I could, she told me to tell her the number of children's hands visible in each frame. If I could see any, she assured me that this, along with the colored lights, would provide the psychic with what she needed to know to heal me and assist my journey. But even as she told me this, I knew that the psychic already knew what I could or couldn't see. It was more like they were testing me. Last little bit, I told the assistant the number of children's hands in each frame, and we were at it for a while as the portraits kept changing. Then the portraits changed back to lights, and I told her the colors again. So here's the thing. The guide in the dream, the assistant in the dream, is encouraging you to say what you see. And she is telling you that once you do that, once you say what you see, it's going to assist with the healing. So whatever you see is what you need to say to people when you're using this gift. And I love how you describe it like the portraits at Hogwarts and Harry Potter. Movies are really fantastic for allowing us to talk about metaphysical things because of the way they can conceptualize things and show them to us. But anyway, it's really good. So you've got this ability. It's a prophetic ability. You can work with crystal balls. You're able to see the past and you're able to see the future. So it's not just, even though you see the old-fashioned stuff here, it's not just going to be limited to that. So that's really cool. So let's have a look at what you said to me. You said that you have quite a number of gifts, but you don't know how to describe how to package them and how to describe to people what you do, as you have so many and they all feel equally important. So I did a bit of channeling on this for you, and big ones for you are channeling. You're a channel and you're a medium. You said channel / psychic / medium, but there's actually 2 gifts in there. Channel and medium are the same thing, but a psychic is somebody who gets information through feeling, comes from your higher self, whereas a channel gets information from another spirit. Completely different things. So you've got the 2 of those. You're a hands-on healer. You asked about that one as well. You can work with crystals. Definitely you can. And then Reiki. Okay, so not as... What they say is you can use Reiki, but you have to be laser focused when you've gotten permission from your guides and the guides of the person that you want to work with. So you can't just blanket shotgun somebody with Reiki, and you can't do it without checking with the guides that it's okay to do. So it's okay to do it, but it's only okay to do it in specific ways or on specific things that you need to use it on. You also said you can do soul retrieval, and yes, you can, but that's more future-based. It's not for now. You said you're a shamanic healer, and yes, you have that, but it's low priority, so I wouldn't give it much light at the moment. Astral travel, yes, you can do that. That one's good for now too. Access to an ability to read Akashic records, and again, that one's going to be in the future, not for now. You said you're a spiritual teacher and counselor, and this is based on what other people have told you. What my guides say is don't use that now. You do have it, and I think you have it from a former life, and you can use it in pieces as you go along here, but it's not for now. And then you said possibly the gift of prophecy too, but not sure on this one. Well, yes, you do. And that's one of your main ones. So you're meant to be doing this. And you're not meant to be a counselor. You don't say counselor, but just you do. But you're not meant to be a counselor, but you are meant to coach people, but coach them through using your gifts. So there we go. I hope that helps you, Shelley. Thank you very much for sending those dreams. I loved seeing them. I love being able to talk about a subject that we've had on the show before, but bring more depth to it. There's always a lot more depth than what I say, because the people who are into these things, they know the inner workings. So let's have a look at another dream. This one is from Jane. She says, my husband and I enter the hotel from the side door. That's just how it starts. I know it's the entrance because I've been there before. The door is golden. So straight away, entering a hotel is about birth. It's bringing you right back to birth. It's actually you going into your mom's body. That's what going into a building is about. But so the door is golden. So the golden is trying to heal your birth or reception at birth. We enter a narrow corridor. To the right, we can see many doors from the rooms, and to the left is a row of seats, two together as in a bus. Immediately after entering, I find one key on the floor and later two more keys, somewhat strange shapes. I take all three and carry them with me. We walk through a narrow opening and enter a huge entrance hall. So that's birth, going through a narrow opening, and you talk about the narrow corridor and everything beforehand. So that's all pre-birth and then out into the world. Now I know you're still in the